I love stained glass windows in church. I do. I know they're old and gothic, but I like stained glass windows. I actually tried to find out how stained glass windows came about, what their history was or their origin story. But you really can't find anything about them. It seems like the origin story has been lost to history. People suspect that it has something to do with maybe how jewelry was put together, but nobody really knows. And you see stained glass windows starting to pop up in the church around the 10th century. They pop up in like Germany and France, depicting Bible stories, and then later in England just as beautiful works of art. And a stained glass window isn't really even a typical window, when you think about it. You think about a window as being a transparent pane where you can see outside or people can see inside. The light kind of illuminates what you're looking at. But it's on the other side of the glass. With a stained glass window, though, you really can't see through it at all. And the picture's made up of these tiny, colored, haphazard pieces of glass that come together to form this composite picture. And then the effect is the sun shines through that window pane and illuminates the picture for everybody that's sitting in the chapel. And what's really interesting to me, and I don't know how true this might have been, but it's interesting to think that the person that crafted that window, the craftsman, the artisan, was sitting in that same church thinking, I made that, That's my contribution. That's my skill, that's my talent being used in church. And then the people who sat around him then thought, that's so-and-so's work. She made that. That's really cool. So when I think about just what the ideal Sunday service for me would be, it goes beyond just what kind of music I like or what kind of teaching I prefer, whether I like expository preaching or whether I like storytelling or narrative. It goes beyond what kind of bulletins you have, whether you like short and fat or tall and skinny, Well, actually, let me back up. For a while now, I have been visiting churches all across California. And just visiting just anything I could go and seek out. People would tell me, oh, this church is really good, or this church, you should really check out this church. And I would go. Popular ones, unpopular, really big, really small, multi-million, you name it. And I was looking for something that was just creative, different, interesting, dynamic, something that would spark an interest in me and say, oh wow, that's really cool, or that's really distinct about Church X. But I don't know, going to all those churches and looking around at everything that they were doing and showing me in their Sunday service, I just came away feeling disappointed, And it wasn't that any of the services were bad. Some of them were really cool, and I liked them, but I didn't see anything in them that stood out to me that said, this is our church. These are the people that go here. This is why we exist. This is what we are all about. And this is what makes us different than the other churches. I'll tell you what it felt like. It feels like someone along the line said, hey, I want to start a church. And then the powers that be said, okay, well, here are your 5 ministry boxes. And these are the 5 boxes that you need for your Sunday service. You have your worship box and your teaching box, and you have an offering box and your announcement box, and then you have communion or bulletins or whatever else you want to add to your service. And you have those 5 boxes, and then every Sunday you have the opportunity to move those boxes around and put them into a service. And that's more of what I saw when I went to visit these other churches. I would say, oh, well, Church X, they have their worship at the end. Or this church puts their announcements at the same time as they do their offering. That's interesting. But beyond that, I didn't see any sort of DNA of the church. I didn't see any fingerprints. I didn't see any color that stood out to me and said, "Oh, this is what makes this church special." Somewhere along the line, someone thought, every church should be like Starbucks. It should just be the same. People should be able to come in off the street and take a sample or take a sip or whatever, and it should click something in their head that said, "Oh, this is church." Right? This is church. But the one different thing about every one of those churches that I visited was they were all made up of different people. Every congregation is different, and it sits in a different part of the city, and it's led by a different ministry team. So somewhere along the line, I felt like all of that different, all of that uniqueness, that should come through on Sunday morning. Otherwise, why pick one church over the other? It should be about the people. It should be about the bride of Christ. I should be able to come in to your service and say, "Wow, this is your color, or this is your composite. This is your stained glass window." I can't really say what that would look like, because I would assume that every church would be different. But I would think that, I don't know, it would be a church that played less Chris Tomlin, and more songs were written by the people that went to that church. Or the artwork on the wall was painted or made or created by the people that went to that church, or there were sculptures, or there was a drama, or a reader's theater, or an interpretive dance. Instead of showing that great Lord of the Rings clip to drive home your sermon, have the guy that is a movie maker in your church make a movie. Have the actors that are in your church be in the movie. Have the photographers that are in your church make all the different worship backgrounds of your slides. Have the graphic designers that are in your church design your bulletins, and have different ones design them for different sermon series that you give. Something to where I could come in and see the fingerprint. Somewhere that I could see just the beautiful color that is your church. Each person coming together, sitting side by side, and my piece and your piece, they don't look like each other at all, but when they come together, and the light of the Holy Spirit shines through, the world sees something beautiful. That would be the kind of church I would want to go to. That would be my ideal Sunday service.